I apologize. See I'm a minute late here, almost 2 minutes late. I was getting my stretch on. I've been sitting in my grandpa rocking chair doing writing all day, and I got my stretch on, man. I feel it. I wrote down this. I'm gonna go over. Do you see the title and everything? This is gonna be a good show. A jar full of stars. What they hid from my friend, the one good bad guy. I'm talking about Reverend Lindstrom, who I worked for at Christian Liberty Academy Satellite School. And it's kind of interesting that I just got off the phone with Luther the Truther. You know him as Yoswell Soaring, that asking about can there was a pastor that got sucked into the John Birch Society, and he was my mentor. And we tried to change the homeschool movement, and we realized a lot of things, but in the end the money was too much, and you know we parted ways. And he was a good guy. I feel he was saved. I think he just got tricked. So many people right now aren't exposed to the truth. They don't know the mud flood was Armageddon, that the golden age was past, that the Lord would lead me to start a channel called Flat Earth Nation Golden Age Past and start teaching this, showing me, never denying I've had two visions 30 years apart, but I'm not charismatic in any way. People thought, because I told them when I had my first vision, I said, you will not believe what happened. I was wrapped up in a bubble cocoon, and I believe everything that Jesus said was true. They said, well, you sound like a charismatic. Well, I went to charismatic and found out I have zero in common with those people. That's everything they're doing is fake, man. I didn't see one sign really of like, I saw a lot of real love for what, they wanted to love Jesus, but that healing and stuff they're doing in the charismatic movement, sketchy at best. The mountains of stone were once gods that died like men. I usually start, but tonight it's different. What is not easier said than done? I got to write this paper. Other students got to write this paper. They're going to risk plagiarism. And now that the computers can write it and spot it, the teachers will flunk them, but they put it off. They can't, they're not trained to what, we can't expose our emotions, especially after the lockdown. What is not easier said than done? I am not writing as a student hoping to pass. Passing to me now is what people did that looked white in the 1800s and through 1940. They looked white, so they tried to pass for white because blacks were being discriminated against. And that seems like that one drop rule that made them inferior legally was in place through most of the history of the United States. Did I say welcome? Mud flood was Armageddon. Mud flood was Armageddon. After the 1,000 years, there was a reaping, and then the orphan trains and the Roman Catholic movement took off with the help of the John Birch Society and all that. Let's check this out. Hey, Sergio, what's up, man? You've been busy. Sergio is a content provider. We doing the pictures or what? Oh, yeah, this thing. Fair use disclaimer. I'm not out to make any money. My opinions are my opinions. My medical advice, in my opinion, is good, but no way is that going to fly in America. You should check with numerous people, especially your own doctor, who's going to disagree with me on money, disagree with me on the Bible. But I'm showing this. So that means something. Que pasa? Hey, Joaquin the Great One has just shown up. I'm on fire, Joaquin. I'm doing a history of what the that United States paper I got here. So, what's up with you, man?
Just chilling. Just what's up? You go crazy.
Yeah, I'm on to this right now. So I was just getting to the point where I was going to see if I had any pictures. I don't know if I did or not, but oh wait, that's not it. This is I'm way off because I was looking for a picture to use for a thumbnail. Here you go. So I think I might have shown all of these. So I didn't really get any new pictures, but I've got plenty of stuff that's going to keep you just blown away. Starting off with this, check this guy out. We're going to get to all the racism stuff here shortly, but this is what's happening in America today. And because of this, I am predicting another Luddite type smash the machinery. What happened? Yikesity doodah. My thing just jumped all over.
On today's episode of What's Going On with Shipping, John Stossel wants to talk about U.S. ports. We better call Sal. I'm the aforementioned Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to today's video. So we're coming into the holiday season. So what better thing to do than a reaction video? We haven't done one in a long time. And we thought this video by John Stossel.
There was this, it was queued up, and then when they backed it up, it
that video. I think he was against it. I'm pretty sure he was against it. But this discussion about the ILA and the labor strike is an important one because we're facing another deadline. January 15th is right around the corner. About the Jones Act, I can't quite remember whether or not John Stossel was pro or for the Jones Act based on that video. I think he was against it.
Well, here he is. This is what you got to see.
Channel in, hit the bell, so be alerted about new videos as they come out.
The new machines used by some American ports are remarkable.
Containers are lowered onto trailers, and within seconds, those trucks drive off. They know where to turn, where to drive, and there are no humans in sight.
Whoa. So this is put out 10 hours ago, and this is the largest union. These guys making $60, $70 an hour. They just got a 62% raise over the next 10 years, but they're not going to be around to do it because there's no stopping this innovation. And when these guys, the last remaining, make $500,000 a year in a union, some of them, I think, are going to be mad when all of a sudden their jobs go away. And they're going to go, oh, you can't do this without us. Something's up with this, man. What, John? What?
He rightly complains about safety.
The jobs on the waterfront are very dangerous. We've had 17 people killed in the last 3 years.
But that's an argument for automation.
100% agree with John Stossel on this. And this is where Daggett comes up short.
Yeah. So the argument being, let's see, my argument is who controls the docks really in the history has the power. The mafia control the docks. The USS Normandy, remember that got sabotaged, flipped over, blown up in New York Harbor in 1942. So they were on the phone. Hi, this is the President of the United States. I'd like to talk to the head of the mafia, Charlie Lucky Luciano. Yes, he's in prison. Yeah, we want to make a deal. If your mafia people will stop messing with the boats and sabotaging us, we're in the middle of a world war, we'll let you out of prison. Okay, deal. Yeah, okay. So we made a deal with the commies and the mafia, and yet somehow we're still the good guys. That's what's happening. The docks are in jeopardy right now. They're not going to fight back. This December is going to be crazy. And if you don't get your mind around true theology, I don't see how you're going to make it. It's going to be hard. So let's see where we're going. This is the John Stossel thing. Done with that. Sharon? Done. Oh, another reminder. This is the guy that showed Birth of a Nation and glorifying the Ku Klux Klan when he was elected president. He's quoted in that movie, started the League of Nations, hated black people, but loved America. And a lot of people think that's the great time. That was the great time.
To America on January 17, 1920, as well as passage of the 19th Amendment that same year, which gave women the right to vote. Leaving office in March of 1921, he passed away at his Washington, D.C. home on February 3, 1924, making the life and public policies of Woodrow Wilson a productive yet complex figure in
Right. How complex does it have to be to know that you started a world war after you won your second term saying, I've kept you out of the world war? He hired Edward Bernays to change the mood, to make the people think, well, you know what, we should go kill those Germans. In less than 6 months, they said, yeah, let's get these people drafted and send them over there. And the people were lining up like sheep, like lemmings. We got to get to the racial stuff. Okay, here, who's tougher on crime? How long have the same people been arguing about this? Everything goes back to that 1958 Education Act, National Defense Education Act, that started DARPA, NASA, STEM for the geniuses so that they could segregate them.
Address rising crime rates. However, the long-term impact of this legislation has been a source of great controversy. While the bill didn't directly cause mass incarceration, it did reinforce existing punitive policies disproportionately affecting Black Americans. The crime bill provided funding for the expansion of police forces and prison systems, while incentivizing states to adopt harsher sentencing laws, including mandatory minimums. It also introduced 3 strikes laws, leading to...
And that led to people going to jail for life for weed or cocaine or crack. From Bill Clinton, the man who, you know, he lied so much. He said, what's the meaning of is debatable, because he's used to getting away with rape. What was that girl's name? Dixie something? And then Jennifer Flowers, I mean, they wrote love letters like crazy. And the icon of women, Hillary Clinton, the feminist, do it all by yourself. Didn't she stand by her man an awful lot? Something that a lot of women wouldn't do. But if you needed to stay in power, don't you swallow your pride and say, I need to stay in power? Let's pretend to be married. Okay, we can do that. That's enough of that. Friedrich Nietzsche and the Jews, nationalism, fascism, right here. The Italian and German fascist regimes, you ever heard of them, were eager to lay claim to the fact that they believed God was dead and you needed an Uberman, a man in power, and to position themselves as inspired by them. In 1932, Nietzsche's sister received a bouquet of roses from Adolf Hitler. Gosh, brings a single tear to my eye. A German premier of the dictator Benito Mussolini, and in 1934, Hitler presented her with a wreath for Nietzsche's grave. They found it. I mean, God is dead. Fascism. What, you know, it is. It's like a Trump. It's like an Obama. Just put that one person in power. It doesn't matter what party they're from. They're going to do it. And real men live dangerously. We'll get more into him. Probably too much. Let's see. I saved this to say, what's on my algorithm? Is your algorithm, what's this? Is this what you get? These are people that understand my theory because it's changing the world. They've started to go nice. Another 5 years timeline. There's no stopping the mud flood was Armageddon movement. And the exposure of the CIA. This is what I live, it's what I breathe, it's what I believe, and it's the Rosicrucians, it's the Freemasons, it's the public law enacted on September 2nd, 1958. Research and experimentation into more effective utilization of television. Do you think they got that one figured out? Radio, motion pictures, and related media for educational purposes. This is our public law. What public law? Well, it's the National Defense Education Act of 1958. In it, you find the NASA. In it, you find the DARPA. In it, you find STEM. In it, where are we at? These laws, man, I'm telling you, you got to remember all this miscellaneous provision. Is it 1000 or 104? 1001. Okay, if you want to get paid, that's what this law included in the annexation miscellaneous. The commissioner is authorized to delegate any of his functions under the act except making regulations to any officer or employee of the Office of Education and administering the titles of acts. Commissioners authorized. But where is that if you want to get paid? Okay, no part of any funds for the government appropriated or otherwise made available for spending, that's expenditure, under authority of this act, the new law of 1958, shall be used to make payments or loans to any individual unless such individual has executed and filed with a commissar. Yeah, hey, commissar, here's my affidavit that proves he does not believe in and is not a member of, it does not support any organization that believes in or teaches the overthrow of the United States government by force or violence or any illegal or unconstitutional method. Well, when you have to put that in a law and make people swear to it, I believe the United States government's been taken over, either by force or coercion or just voluntarily. But it was obviously illegal and unconstitutional, but they make them lie because mommy get hungry, mommy need food, tummy go grumbly, or two. So you have to do one. You got to admit that, sign it, and then you have to raise your right hand and take and subscribe to an oath of affirmation saying, I do solemnly swear or affirm, because people still do this today. I talked to my new professor. He had to sign this before he got a job at this university because, we got NASA sponsorship. We get government money. We're that kind of university. That I will bear true faith and allegiance only to the United States. Probably why I've had 3 classes in history, and I've never even heard the Freemasons mentioned, or any of the Odd Fellows, or any of the only secret societies they talk about is the Ku Klux Klan, and they're not too secret. They're marching down Main Street of Alamosa just 80 years ago. I swear allegiance to the United States and will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States against all its enemies. And they'll decide who are the enemies, foreign and domestic. You don't pass laws like that unless you need it. I was looking up this is too difficult to get into. It's how there's only a couple of different things in the body that can break down nitrogen to ammonia. It's a big deal with this nitrogen fixation. I didn't know. I had a few minutes. I didn't know where it was going, but I'm always looking for reducing agents. As the Stones are crying out, a slavery debate was a response to the bloodiest slave rebellion in U.S. history. Nat Turner and about 60 other men in August of 1831 killed 58 white men and women and children in Southampton County, threw some of the bodies onto bonfires. The slaves did this. They got fed up or something, and they fed others to the wolves. They ransacked the houses, stole things. But in case you were worried, they did not engage in rape or sexual violence. People were worried about that. This happened, and he was captured. About 120 Africans, although it was at 50, 60 did it, without a trial, were hung. Turner was captured on October 30, and then November 11. That's the date that they signed the armistice for World War I on. Who knows? But it sent shockwaves of fear. That's how they lived their lives before they started passing these laws and getting more and more ridiculous. Are you going to stick around, or are you going to? So they went to the House of Delegates to consider slavery and asked the House of Delegates to consider. Some people were saying slavery's an evil in our country. Is it? Well, an evil which has been of long time continuance and is now of increasing magnitude. So, long story short, they decided to never discuss it again. That, yeah, it's a necessary evil and we're going to defend it. And they did for quite a while. So I told you earlier I had to do a paper. This is what I was learning in the class. Let's see, you mentioned orphan trains. I'll probably put it up there. Well, you guys, so here's the first one. I wanted to read this. Now, this was the founding of the Confederate States of America. Our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite idea. You'll find out what it is. Its foundations are laid, its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, subordination to the superior race, is his natural and normal condition. Applesauce. This, our new government, Confederate States of America, is the first in the history of the world based upon this great physical, philosophical, and moral truth. So a lot of people don't, it kind of hurts us when people want to talk about it was only states' rights. It was only states' rights. Yeah, I believe that too for a long, long time until I realized, wow, it was all about slavery and they needed to make money because the love gives a thrill, but love don't pay the bills. You're going to need the money. That's what I want. Remember that song? So there's a lot about slaves. Is this the one that has that? Yeah, these maps. See, so here's the cotton production in the South. I want you to kind of get the deep patterns here. Now, there's the, see these same deep patterns? Now look at it. This was where the percentages of slavery were. This is from the spread of slavery. Where were the most slaves? So just get a look at the different colors. Now look at how long do these things last? Well, you see here is the density of the slave population in the 1860. Okay. And now what is this? Oh, this is how many people voted Republican in the 2016 and 2020 elections. And there does seem to be like, wow, that did it. Next, we have Lincoln's second inaugural. And again, I know many of the people that are conservative, white Christians that listen to me that are learning, it's hard to go like, oh, Lincoln's bad. He did a lot of bad things. They all do, don't they? But we just heard how they started the Confederacy. How did Lincoln end the war? What was his second message? At least somebody wrote this. Let's see, he saw a conciliatory tone. This is what my professor put down. Conciliatory toward the soon-to-be defeated Confederates. Pointed out that the war may well have been punishments for all Americans for holding on slavery for hundreds of years. This is the quoted part. Both read the same Bible and pray to the same God, and each invokes his aid against the other. It may seem strange that any men should dare to ask a just God's assistance in wringing their bread from the sweat of other men's faces. But let us not judge that we be not judged. If we shall suppose that American slavery is one of those offenses which, in the providence of God, must needs come, but which, having continued through his appointed time, he now wills to remove, and that he gives to both North and South this terrible war. Yet, if God wills that it continue until all the wealth piled by the bondsman's 250 years of unrequited toil shall be sunk, and every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid by another drawn with the sword, as was said 3,000 years ago, so it must be said. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. So with malice towards none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work that we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. And so that was quite a bit different. Where's my mouse at? Well, I had a near catastrophe over here. So what else have we got here? So they talk about McClellan, the war in the East, and why didn't the North just win in a month? Well, it was slave states and free states. But if you were for a free state, that didn't, or if you were anti-slavery, that only meant you cared about elections. So I have a lot of interest in that. I think I need to go to, let's see. Did I close the one that I wanted to read? No way. So here's the first draft that I wrote, because like I said, I did 950 words and then I decided I didn't like it, but I liked some of it. My professor, he's probably the most famous teacher on campus here. He's worked for the History Channel. He's worked for the NFL. 3 years he wrote This Day in History for some PBS or something. But anyway, I've taken 3 classes with him, and he knows I'm a conspiracy guy. I asked him if he had ever heard of the Wide Awakes. He never did. And he was surprised when he looked it up. He even sent me a link to it. And he was surprised. Who are the Wide Awakes? Just another secret society, anti-slavery, that escorted Lincoln that nobody ever heard about. These things are getting released right now. And the Republican Party was founded on End Slavery Now. The Democrats that supported the Union were on no, let's just keep it the way it is, but add no more slave states. How's that for crazy? And a lot of those people that drug their feet while they were generals for Abraham Lincoln were Democrats. So this is a conspiracy to keep it in the Reconstruction moment. Got a lot going on here. I'm getting a little bit distracted. So we had that. The first draft also mentioned. Anyway, in my last class, before I decided to write this paper, I had everything ready to write. We studied in depth the troubles President Lincoln had with a General McClellan, and I showed him with all his hidden-handed poses, in that sometimes he seemed to be working for the Union. I now think the real brother versus brother fighting in the Civil War should be looked at as a battle of worldviews between secret societies. Because the wide awakes they all had it. But somehow I think the Democrats must have won because they got shamed into like, okay, we have to end slavery, but we're going to replace it with sharecropping and this and that, and everybody's still going to be poor and you can't drink out of white fountains. So that's the way they got it to work out. And well, why not? Why would a president of the United States keep General McClellan as head of the Union Army unless the general was very popular in 4 Union states that held slaves? Did you know that? All of the Union was not free. And like today, you have to worry about the midterms elections. President Lincoln needed to maintain power, so he couldn't fire General McClellan until afterwards. And he did. So General McClellan ran as the Democrat nominee for president when Lincoln won his second term. You think he was all of a sudden like pro? And I read a book on him. He never even mentioned slavery. If it's what's that guy's name? Anyway, so I changed it up and now I wrote this. I am not writing as a student trying to pass a history class. Passing now means to me a person with something called color blood that holds back equal treatment to them by others who can prove they did not have any of the colored blood flowing in their pure white bodies. I am still suffering cognitive dissonance from the fact that some humans have been forced to pass for most of the history of the United States of America. At least the mulatto had the hope of passing. I'm implying that if you're black, you were just going to suffer in the United States for most of our history. No equality of opportunity for those who are dark complected for most of the history of the country, so many think was once great. After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. 1 Samuel 18, verse 1. The above is a true definition of a brother. King David felt the same way about Prince Jonathan, who was the son of the current king of the Hebrew nation. King David was to replace King Saul because God was not pleased with the actions of Saul. David and Jonathan understood that Saul was not listening to the prophet Samuel, so they, as brothers in the spirit, made a conspiracy, a secret pact, to live an agenda based on a hidden truth. That is a union of purpose that causes people to identify as brothers in fraternal organizations. It is a real feeling of teamwork, but not all conspiracies work for what is best for all people. The history of the United States of America is full of secret societies. We have had presidential elections when both men in the same secret society from Yale University called Skull and Crossbones. I don't know if I read that sentence right. This topic was explained by people as of no consequence, and anyone who thought differently could be dismissed by simply saying only conspiracy theorists would care about something so silly as two people being in the same skull and bones fraternity. Yeah, we got shamed for that. They were brothers for a cause. Brothers for a cause work both ways, good or bad, as those who are bound themselves to preserving slavery felt and were taught they were pleasing the same Jesus Christ as those praying to the abolitionist when picking books to research what others have said about this history caused me to choose a book from the Confederate point of view. The first sentence was a quote: "Southrons, hear your country call you to arms, to arms, to arms, Dixie. See, the beacon lights are lighted, or the beacon fires are lighted." Page 9 of an introduction by Frank McSherry, Confederate Battle Stories. The above quote is from Albert Pike. And I can't get into how much we know about him and the Freemasons and theosophy and everything else, but I did add he was a general in the Confederate Army that happens to be a man dedicated to the secret society of the Freemasons and the lost cause theory. To me, this helped explain how the lost cause became part of the one drop rule mystery and what I am calling a type of conspiracy. A search for the term one drop rule will flood the searcher with plenty of information, but I could not find out when this foul rule was made into a law. Using Wikipedia to find a source will not help, as its first sentence says only that the one drop rule was a legal principle of racial classification that was prominent in the 20th century of the United States. And it lists no footnote or citations to show when this abhorrent rule was established. I have been told the one drop rule existed before the Civil War, and I thought it ended sometime after April 1865 when the Civil War ended, but I've not been able to find proof of that. Instead, I was treated, not subjected, to lecture after lecture of how many Union generals that President Lincoln had to fire because they all seemed not motivated. My position is that they were not motivated because they were as racist as the generals fighting for the Confederacy. The government of Virginia even passed a law to end forever the topic of slavery because it could not be proven morally justifiable. I was shocked when I was taught that these men knew it was wrong, but it would have caused too much financial hardship to live a life of a non-slave owner. So the idea was tabled and legally could never be voted on again. How the lost cause became a movement in the United States, and not that it should be taught at a point is a point of national shame. I got to fix something there. It is a struggle to comprehend. Even in the last few years, people were fought when trying to remove statues to people that held questionably and possibly evil ideas concerning colored blood. People wanted to make America great again by protecting those images of men that fought to defend slavery. Okay, so I got, that's about 750 words. I'm halfway done. It barely have to try. Now, on that, I plan on ending this in a way that compares it to abortion. Because right now, as much as they were so caught up in slavery that the mind had infected everyone, that very few people were just saying, it is morally wrong. I don't care if it's going to hurt our pocketbook. It's the same with abortion right now. We are so mentally involved in that. A whole generation has grown up and is now pushing 50 years old, where constitutionally it's been a legal right. And even my professors don't know that in 1972, when abortion law was passed, it was for the first 12 weeks, the first 12 weeks only. And we said, they're going to chip away. And they said, how dare you? How dare you? We only want to do that for the first 12 weeks. Well, now you can get up to partial birth abortion. And we have to act like that's normal, knowing at the grocery store, just the odds are half the women you see have had abortions. And they're dealing with it. I've said, on the way to the abortion clinic, what the devil is saying, it's only a fetus, it's only a fetus, it's only a fetus. On the way home, they're saying, you just killed a baby, murderess. That's a lot of pressure put on women. It never used to be that way. We're living in an experiment gone wrong since 1958, but they don't care. And the Bible says they're not going to care. Eventually, they're going to get tired of hearing people like me, and they're going to say, quit telling me I'm guilty of sin. We should kill you. And they will. And then God will rescue us because we'll have been hiding. And then the fire that comes down to purify us, I think it'll be like the fire that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego lived through. And we're there with Jesus, a refining fire that purifies you because your sins can be forgiven. That's what the Bible teaches, and it's true. And if you hear his voice, and if you've been on your knees and you've confessed his name, there's nothing else you can do except live this life. On this flat earth nation where the mud flood was Armageddon. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Nagame. You know, that's how I